Welcome to Sales, Tax, and More, your go-to resource for all things state tax related. Now, here is your host, Michael Fleming.
Hi, I'm Mike Fleming, founder of Sales, Tax, and More, and today's co-host of the Sales, Tax, and More podcast, where we talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is, of course, sales tax. And while sales tax is everyone's favorite subject, we've decided that we're going to begin having guests who are experts in their field who can speak about subjects that we believe are going to be of interest to the audience out there. Now, before we introduce today's guest, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Ellie Moffitt. Ellie, want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I love being part of this podcast. For those of you who don't know about Sales Tax and More, I'll do a quick introduction for that. So Sales Tax and More is a full-service consulting and solutions firm. We have a really great team of experienced tax professionals who are very dedicated to fulfilling your state tax-related needs. So we do a lot of consulting, research, registrations, and like our name states, more. So you can always ask us questions, but Mike, I'll flip it back to you and we can move along.
Now, today's guest is Scott Citron, and he's the founder and president of Citron & Company, and they're known for helping companies and organizations improve their bottom line through strategic public relations, communications, marketing programs, and top-notch client service. He's an accredited consultant, and he works with companies in professional services such as medical, legal, accounting, engineering, high-tech companies, and business-to-business and business-to-consumer product service sales. Now, I've known Scott for many, many years, more than I care to admit, and I can personally tell you that Scott knows his stuff. So, Scott, you want to say a quick hello?
Hi, everybody, and Ellie and Mike, thank you for having me on.
Okay, thank you for appearing. Now, Scott, I have a question that we've talked about previously, and I think it's a great way to start off today's discussion here. What is the difference between public relations and marketing?
Well, I think that's a great question, Mike, to start out with, because I get that question all the time. Whenever I speak, people want to know about it. There's two schools of thought out there. There's the one school of thought that marketing is completely separate from PR, and I'm of the school of thought that that PR is actually a subset of marketing. So if you think about sort of an umbrella, you have marketing at the top, and under that you have PR, you have other communications, tactics, tools, strategies, whatever they are. And, marketing, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's about selling a service or a product. And in the case of accountants, anyone that I think would probably be listening to this or watching it would want to say they're selling a service more likely than anything else. But there are some products, of course, sold. PR, on the other hand, is how you position what you're selling and sort of the image you're trying to create around the service or product that you're trying to get out there in the marketplace. And I always, whenever I have a prospect or whenever I'm speaking again before groups or talking with anyone in the profession, they want to know about PR. I always start out with the question, would you rather be rich or would you rather be famous? And yeah, there's a really well-known movie way back. I won't tell you how old I was when it came out, but there's a movie way back called Rich or Famous, and it kind of goes into that. And so, I get sort of a quirky look like, well, I don't know what I'd rather be. Okay, so if you'd rather be rich, that's about marketing what you're doing. It's about making more money. It's about trying to gain as much foothold as you can in the marketplace to sell more product or services. If you're interested in becoming famous, that's where the PR aspect may come in, because a lot of times company owners, they're happy with their marketing, they're selling their product or services, but what they find is they want to be more well-known within their profession. So when it comes down to PR tactics, we look at things like speaking at conferences, getting their name placed in publications, getting articles bylined by them and putting those in publications. In other words, anywhere someone would begin to recognize, somebody's name along with their company, And of course, you can rattle off the top of your head very, very famous people in today's marketplace, but there are a lot of not so famous people that also want to get well known, and that's where PR comes in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Scott, thank you for highlighting those differences and kind of explaining that to us. And I think we read and hear a lot that acquiring new business is one of the top concerns of accounting professionals. I mean, that seems pretty clear. So is marketing effective for accounting professionals?
Well, I think it can be. I think that's another really good question. I think it's, yes, absolutely. But they have to be in it for the long haul. If you're expecting, my gut feel is if you're expecting immediate results, which, let's face it, a lot of accountants do want immediate satisfaction with what they're doing because that's the kind of business they're in. They're looking at numbers. They're looking at their clients' numbers. They're looking at, in your case, sales tax reporting, compliance. Those are things that are fairly immediate to report and audit and figure out. In the case of marketing, it's not such a fast thing. Yeah, you could go out there with a widget and sell 200,000 widgets tomorrow on a home shopping network. But, we're talking about accounting here and about, the accounting profession, and something like that takes time. In the case of accounting, again, it's a service they're selling. It's going to be a slow drip in terms of results for marketing. But if they're in it for the long haul, I think they'll definitely see results. And I always say, too, accountants are very good at numbers, but they're not great at marketing. I'm very good at marketing and PR, but I'm lousy with numbers. Don't ask me to. This is why I have a financial bookkeeping program right on my Mac that I open every morning because you wouldn't want me to bounce your checkbook. So again, accountants are very good with numbers, not so great at marketing, but they can be taught marketing certainly because they're very smart people. They know what they're doing.
All right. So thanks for sharing. And it looks like marketing can work for accountants. What's one of the first things you do that you have accountants do when you start working with them?
Well, the first thing we do is we come to a consensus on messaging. Okay, so messaging is very, very important. And when I say messaging, I mean being able to speak to what you do in a very consistent way, again, consistently all the time. In other words, if you're having a conversation with one of your clients and you start telling them what you do and what your service is, and then you turn around and have another conversation with somebody else, what you're saying to the first client has to be the same thing you're saying to the second client or prospect. You can't be something different than what you are. And as soon as you can get that messaging down, and we get it down on paper, we just say, okay, let's hit the 5 key points that your business is involved in, what you're trying to be, who you're trying to portray, what you're selling, what you're marketing. Let's get that down on paper because it's very important that you look at that all the time and figure out, okay, this is what we're doing. So once you have those messages down, it's very, very easy to pivot off of that with any strategy or tactics you're trying to do for marketing or PR. So that's one thing. And I think there's 2 more that I'd like to talk about. The second one is what we have clients do is we tell them that they've got to take a risk. Okay, they've got to take a chance on doing something different than what they're doing. If they're doing everything right, they certainly don't need us. They don't need anybody at all, no matter how great they are at marketing or PR, to guide them and tell them what to do. So we always say, you've got to be able to take a risk. And, that's not something that's easy for a lot of accountants to grasp because they're used to
mostly risk adverse. So
I know, and they're used to control. They're used to being in control and absolutely knowing what's right around the corner. And with marketing and especially PR, it's not always like that. You have to be able to take a risk. The last thing I want to talk about in this area is they've got to be able to make a decision. Okay, so that sounds easy, but I've worked with a lot of clients who were absolutely the nicest people on the planet. I had a client one time who was in financial services and named Bill, and Bill was absolutely the nicest person you would ever want to meet. If I said, Bill, give me the shirt off your back, He would take it off and give it to me, no questions asked, not even wanting to know what I needed it for. But when it came down to him making a decision, he just couldn't do it. He was so unsure of the path that he wanted to take himself that he ended up not making any decisions. And so over I'm not kidding you, a 12-year course of work that we did with him, finally about the 8th or 9th year, I said, Bill, you've got to find somebody else to work with, because if you can't make a decision, we can't move forward. Oh, I'll give you more money. Okay, so the first time I was like, all right, so he's giving me more money. I guess I'm worth what I'm saying. Again, came time to make a decision. Same thing. I'll give you more money. Please don't leave me. Third time I said, I'm sorry, but we just have to move on, because it's not doing you any good to pay us for services if you can't move forward with what you're doing. So you've got to be able to make that decision. And I know that's hard. It's hard for me in my business to make decisions that have long-term impact. So
same here.
Three things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Scott, you didn't just give us the first thing, you gave us 3 great things there, which is fantastic. And this question really might reiterate some of this, but what is the number one thing that you see accountants not doing that they should be doing in regards to their marketing efforts?
Well, the thing I hit home on the most is measurement. You've got to measure what you're doing. So let's say, for example, again, you have a new niche within your practice. Let's say you want to start a forensic accounting practice, or you want to, what's another good example? You want to niche in a certain industry. Let's say you want to niche in e-commerce or retail or franchises, whatever that is. And so you go out there with a grand plan. You may have staff you may already have staff who can do that, who can find and secure those clients, do the work. But, or you may have to hire, but at the end of the day, have you really increased your billings? Have you contacted more clients? Were you able to get more clients because of that new line of service you're offering? In other words, you've got to measure what you're doing, and that can be done. A lot of marketing people say, well, it's hard to measure what you're doing because a lot of what accountants do, a lot of what the accounting profession does isn't concrete. In other words, it's let's say you're going out with with a product, or you're going out with a service, trying to measure its effectiveness. There are different ways to do it. Some of them have to do with numbers. Some of them have to do with value. In other words, your value to the marketplace. But any good marketing person will find a way to help you measure what you're doing. And I always say, when we start an engagement with a firm or a company, I always say, let's do a 3-month check-in. Let's see how things are going, because they may not be seeing results on their end. We may not be seeing the results they want to see, and yet they may not even know what they want to see. So again, we need to check in pretty regularly after that 3-month period, because again, they're paying money for something, and if they don't think they're getting something in return, then what good does it do?
Yeah, and that rings so true, Scott. I mean, one of my mantras is around here, we can't manage something if we can't measure it. So what you're saying, just rings, perfectly with me. It's resonating. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, Scott, we've already added a lot of value into this episode, and we're not going to stop quite yet. So what should people be avoiding? I mean, you talked a lot about what they should do, what most people aren't doing, but what's something that these accounting professionals need to avoid?
It boils down to 3 simple words: pay for play. Don't pay to play. And what I mean by that is don't take ads out in publications, either print or online. You can look at doing some possible Google ads if you want. I don't think they're extremely effective. If you've got, they're effective for businesses who have a large local presence or have something that's very niche. But in the case of accounting, accountants want to, they want to market to an audience outside their local area most of the time. And because of that, I wouldn't put a lot of money into ads. I certainly wouldn't, like for instance, I've been asked in the past, Susie Q contacted me she's got a radio show, and she contacted me to be on her show, and it's only going to cost me $3,500 to be on this show. Okay. So instead of just shutting them down, I would never do that. I always sandwich my remarks somehow, but I'll ask questions like, okay, what kind of radio show is it? Is it something on a local radio station that's well listened to by your potential clients or your audience? Or is it something kind of obscure? Maybe it's something on the internet somewhere. Maybe it's something else. What kind of audience does she have? And why the heck is she charging for people to be on? Because in the PR world and somewhat in the marketing world, you'll want to get that non-biased third-party endorsement. In other words, you do not want to pay for space. It's the same thing as like spending money for an article in a publication. You wouldn't do that. You would want the article placed in the publication because the editors or the publishers thought it was something good for their audience. So again, I wouldn't pay to play. Very rare instances, in very rare instances, it pays off, but otherwise, probably not.
Great. Thanks, Scott. You've shared a lot of great tidbits of information here. As always, every time I listen to you, every time I speak with you, I myself learn something. If members of our audience want to reach out to you or work with you, number one, how can you work with them and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I'd love to talk with anybody who's interested in working with us, absolutely. I have what's called a father-son practice. My son works with me. He's been with me over 6 years. And
Great guy.
I know, and I've been in business almost 25 years. This Thanksgiving will be 25 years on my own. And we have a lot of fun, so I want to work with people that are fun, always. They're welcome to call me. The number is 972-743-4671, or they can find me at my website, which is Citron and Company. So it's C as in Charlie, Y, T as in Tom, RON as in Nancy, and company, everything spelled out, .com.
All right. Well, thank you again, Scott, for appearing. And for those of you who need sales tax questions answered or any services or solutions, you can reach out to Ellie directly at eMoffat, that's EMOFFAT at salestaxandmore.com, or you can visit our website at salestaxandmore.com, all spelled out. In addition to the services we offer, we have a series of free webinars that provide CPE credit, and we appreciate you listening to us today. Thanks, and hope to hear you or have you come to our next edition of our Sales Tax and More podcast. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe and check out all of the resources we have out on the web.